Good evening. I haven't done one of these videos in a minute. Ooh, that looks nice. Cleared me up a lot better. Let me change the setting. Ooh. There we go. Natural light. It's always the best light. Yeah. Okay. So, I haven't done one of these in a minute. Schedule's been all messed up and everything. But I really wanted to make this video about... Let me adjust this. Arguing with women, well, females, about masculinity. And the biggest problem that we have in modern society is that, one, nothing's traditional. Nothing's traditional. So we need to throw all tradition in the garbage. File 14. Not 13, not in the garbage. File 14, that's that file cabinet that's way, way in the back that's covered with everything in front of it. Old records, old clothes, grandma's wedding dress, that old thing. It's way back there in file 14. Tradition is back there. We need to redefine tradition and put masculinity within that. The same way you got to get rid of old traditional ways about femininity. We're living modernity. There is, as much as we would like to get back to a traditional sense, we're not in that time period or time frame. But the one thing that can be defined and not change is femininity and masculinity. We don't need to redefine masculinity. We don't. We never had to. It's just that masculinity had to be adapted to modern society. And the hardest thing I think it is for females of the modern era to understand is that for a while, we tried to adapt masculinity to female needs, which has backfired and blown up horribly. It has really come down to where we have to step back and realize that we were letting females define masculinity without males defining femininity. And our standards as males just hit the floor. Anything was acceptable. And now that we're actually having these conversations about femininity, masculinity, provision, marriage, when we're actually looking at this and put it under the microscope and realize how it is become a crapshoot in modernity, we can now actually bring back value to those things. But there's one thing we should never argue with when we have females in a conversation. We can't have them talk about masculinity like they understand. They understand masculinity as an act, as something that is supposed to help them in their lives. It is not, and I repeat, it is not just an act. It is a principle. It is a mindset. If you look at traditional tribes in Africa, in the Amazon, if they will allow cameras to fly over Sentinel Island, you will see traditional ways that young men were trained up to be the masculine figure in the tribe. But it wasn't just, oh, you turn 18, now you're a man. Go get a job. It wasn't that. It was a full-blown grown mindset. And it started within the house. It started within the tribal group. Okay, yes, the kids were out there playing and, pretending to be what the grown-ups were doing. They would make little bows and arrows. They would make little spears. They were throw.
It's the freedom to choose.
Sorry about that. They would throw sticks and stuff, pretending to be hunters. You know, they would help make weapons. They would help build, but they were learning this bit by bit. And I think that's what the problem is that in modernity, we've, and you can say it's because of the collapse of the nuclear family, but you also got to understand that it was also a whole entire tribe. It wasn't just the nuclear family. Outside of that, that was extended family. And everybody had a hand in molding the little children. And usually with that type of group parenting, it helped out in actually raising up because you had these kids learning from different perspectives. But also everybody was in one cohesive understanding of supporting the next generation. But getting back to the basics though, the women in the tribe never defined the masculine role. They just understood the masculine role. Did they have questions? Did they ask? Yes. But also the men advised. Just like how the women in the excuse me, no such how the women um in the tribe got asked questions. They didn't just do chores or were told what to do. Everybody had their role and their role was understood, and they all understood that everything was vital and important. But in modernity, everything's individualistic. So with with broken homes, with separated parental figures, masculinity got masculinity got reinterpreted through a multi-lens, multi-spectrum um, way. It was told through audio with the radio. It was told through visuals with TV. It was also told with the mother who was ever present and or the father. Now, whether he was a good example or bad, if he wasn't ever present, then you had a very skewed view of masculinity. Also, cohesiveness. If their mother and the father were not cohesive, then you started to get a fractured sense of how things are supposed to work. But at no point in time did women understood what masculinity is. They understood what a man's position and man was used as a tool. And I would say this had came about right at the 80s. Right at the 80s. Practically after 85. Practically after 85. And that's when you start seeing more individualism coming in. That's when you start seeing more entertainment, not professionalism, but more performativism, more performative acts, whether it was in the professional workplace or in the home or the public space, the social space. Everything is performative. So masculinity became a performative act. And that's where we're at. We're actually looking at this, and we need to understand that being masculine is not just a performative act. And when we try to explain this to females, they don't want to listen. We may say take care of a man's needs is simple, but there's layers to it. That's how they see everything with men. And it's always with extremes. It's never there's layers to it. That's why they can never explain masculinity. It goes for who's dominant and who's not. It goes from good or bad. The good man is always willing to give and willing to sacrifice for his lady's approval and happiness. That's no good, because if that man's working it out. If he falters, what happens to you? Oh, well, then he's on his own. That's his problem. That doesn't make sense. Then are you in a relationship? You're only in a relationship if he's only supplying for her happiness, which is never a good thing. One person should never supply one happiness because happiness is fleeting. And that's why these conversations get really, really dicey. It gets really, really dicey. Is because on the one hand, and I've said this already more than once in this video, you have women who want men to bear their burdens so they can live a soft life, while men over here are saying, okay, but are you going to reciprocate and appreciate all the work I'm doing? In other words, emotional labor. That's how they're hearing it. They don't want to do any labor at all. Mental, emotional, physical, financial, no labor at all. That's where they're at. You can hear it every single time they have this. I'm looking for a man who's going to pay my bills and who's going to take me out on trips, who's going to sweep me off my feet and make me feel like a princess, but no reciprocation. As long as I'm happy, he's going to be happy. No, that's not how it works. Because you're not showing any reciprocation. And that's the most frustrating part of all. That's why the 50-50 argument, that's why the 50-50 argument is such a aggravating argument. Mainly because it's not being articulated properly and it's being demonized from all accounts because everything's capitalistic. So you must get the biggest bang for your buck. You have to give the biggest bang for your buck, you know. And people are not willing to pay. They don't want to pay that much because everything gets so damn expensive, including time and energy. I mean, that's the capitalist thing in the world. And I don't think we're real in real capitalism, but that's not a video for this. That's a video for something else. But true 50-50 has nothing to do with if I pay half the bills, then I'm your partner. No, then I'm not your lover. I'm literally your roommate. That makes no sense. That makes no sense at all. Lessening one's burdens doesn't mean you get equal say in a relationship. If I have a question and I don't have the expertise, but you do, and I come to you, I'm asking you for help to relieve me of my burden of trying to figure something out. And if you have the answer, I'm going to take that answer and go finish up and go solve this problem that gives me more time to help you or treat you. That's like what 50-50 is. It's basically you come in with yours, I come in with mine, and we see we can work together and relieve some of the burden off of each other. I mean, that's what it is. It has nothing to do with, I get equal say on everything. That don't make no sense because sometimes you don't have the answer. Sometimes I don't have the answer. If we're in this relationship, it's push and pull, give and take. The 50-50 argument is not even an argument. It's a temporary situation. That's what gets so construed. And then you want to throw, well, you're supposed to provide. Okay, cool. Then what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to nurture. And you're supposed to nurture and encourage. If we don't have kids, then the person you're supposed to nurture is me. And encourage me so I can be the best provider that I can so it relieves more of your burdens. But if you're just saying, I just need to provide to have you around, that doesn't make any sense. And that goes back into masculinity. If you have a woman who only sees you as a tool, then as a masculine man, you need to stand your ground and tell that woman to leave. She's a liability. She's not a woman. She's not a lady. She's a liability. And they need to go. Masculinity deals with morals and principles and holding people to a standard, including yourself. And the hardest part about being masculine is holding people to that standard. Friends, relatives, anyway, calling them out when they're doing wrong. It is the hardest thing. I understand. Especially when it comes to significant others. If women are not being emotionally accountable when you tell them they're not doing something, then you just tell them that this relationship is not going to work. You do not let them trample all over your feelings. If they if they say something is cheap and you put a lot of thought and effort to it, then to say like, well, then you can go find somebody else because you're not going to degrade my efforts. And when they tell you all this crazy stuff, like there are other women getting all sorts of stuff like that, well, go find you a man that's going to do that then. But you're not going to disrespect me and my efforts in trying to show how special you are to me. You don't let them off. You don't let them off. And then when they want to get mad, it was like, I mean, you could do better. It's like, no, you're not going to disrespect me and expect to stay in my presence. No. Take your ball and go home. Hold them accountable. Let them be upset. No one has the right to disrespect you. And as a man, you don't get loud. You don't get angry. You calmly tell them, I'm disappointed. I'm upset. I felt disrespected. And you just remove yourself. Like, I'm going to have to talk. I'm going to have to go ghost for a little bit. Talk about it because this whole scene was ruined or whatnot. Don't let nobody trample your feelings. You have to remain stoic, centered. If you want women to take your feelings into consideration, hold them accountable when they don't. A part of masculinity is understanding when you're being disrespected and holding people accountable and being rude. If you didn't treat that person that way, then they cannot treat you that way either. And like I said, it's multi-layered. And most women are now, they don't want to deal with it, but they understand the reality of it. They don't understand masculinity. So you have to show the masculinity by I won't say removing, but by holding them accountable, by telling them, you don't disrespect me like that. Like this was a code, but and I don't believe in ghosting, but if you're in conversations with a female and in some point in the relationship they say something, kindly and calmly correct them. If they do it more than once, then just say like, hey, I've had good conversations with you and everything, but it seems to me that we're not going to be a fit. So I'm not gonna waste any more of your time. I like what we had, but it doesn't seem like we're gonna it's not gonna go well. So I'm just gonna leave it be and wish you um a happy life, and then bounce. But I don't believe in closure, but I do believe in correction. Let them know what they said wasn't cool or what they did wasn't cool. I don't believe in outright ghosting, but we cannot ask these women to do better if we're not holding them to a standard. And a part of masculinity is holding people to a standard. Why? Because masculinity is the bedrock. It's the salt of the earth. That's why we have to be principled. That's why we have to be disciplined. Doesn't mean we can't be emotional. Doesn't mean we let our emotions take control. We can say that we're angry. We can say that we're upset. We can say that we're frustrated. If we want to express that, we can go into a different area and express that. We can go into trusted friends and express that, you know. But we cannot allow ourselves to just allow these females to trample over masculinity. And another thing, we need to stop calling women masculine. Hyper independent, hyper aggressive, disrespectful, rude, misandrous. But calling them masculine is another way of demonizing masculinity. It's right along with them calling men who are communicating their feelings sassy. I am not part of the if a woman is hyper aggressive and loud and rude that she's masculine. No. No. Hyper independent and hyper aggressive. Overly assertive. Absurdly assertive. There's terminologies we can use, but we really need to stop calling females masculine because that further demonizes masculinity. You stop calling them masculine and say that sounds very misandrous, that sounds very sexist, that's bigoted, you have a prejudice against men. Change the whole tune. Change the whole tune. Stop calling. If you're in any discussion, gender gender oriented or not, don't call women masculine. Stop calling them masculine. Just stop calling them masculine. Because what that does, it's now they're going to caricaturize, make a cartoonish version. What we're doing is giving them a caricature of masculinity because they can never really be masculine. So there's no point in calling them masculine. That's why we get upset when they call us sassy because we understand what they're saying is no different than it's like, oh, you gay? Because they come up to you and you're not attracted to them for some reason or another. You don't find them attractive. It doesn't compute. If we don't want them calling us sassy, we need to stop them. We need to take back the masculinity guard and stop further demonizing masculinity because it does not make sense. That goes to the further misunderstanding of masculinity. By calling them masculine, we're now conflating and confusing the terminology and principles of masculinity, and we need to stop that. Post haste, ASAP. Should have been done last year. But yeah. Start arguing with females about masculinity and femininity. We can only talk about the benefits of a woman when she actually is feminine. Construed, vague, generalizing, it doesn't matter. But we need to be in a full understanding that, yes, we cannot tell a woman how to be feminine, but we can say what we're looking for in a feminine woman. The traits that will most benefit us. We can say that. But telling you how to be feminine, we can't say that at all. And that's okay. But looking for the traits in a feminine woman, we can say that all day. They can't stop that. We're not telling them to be feminine. We can tell them what we're looking for, and that's what they can do. They can tell us what they're looking for. They can't tell us how to be masculine. They can't. They can't tell us how, and we need to stop them from doing it. We need to stop calling them masculine, and we need to stop them from telling us what masculinity is, because they have no idea. and it will end a lot of arguments. Stop calling them masculine, and stop taking advice about stop taking advice from them about being masculine. But that's the video. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Most definitely subscribe. And thank you for all 10 of my views. I'm a small channel. I'm working on it, but for the meager views that I get, at least people are seeing it. And I thank you. Y'all have the night you deserve.